Hi everybody. Geopolitical, indegnious, that's my name in my language, in the Anishinaabe language. For those of you who are here for the first time in Manitoba, there are 7 different indigenous groups here in Manitoba, the largest being the Métis people of Manitoba. It's the homeland of the Métis, as we say. And we're also on Treaty 1 land. There were many treaties that was made prior with each other and other treaties, but the numbered treaties started off here in Manitoba. And this is Treaty 1 territory. I want to say welcome to those visitors that are here and have traveled a long ways to be here. The other groups of people that are here are the people that I come from, the Anishinaabe. And they're basically the southern Manitoba here in this province. And a little north of the Anishinaabe people are the Cree people, or the Inina. And those are pretty well the largest group of indigenous people in Canada. And north of the Cree are the Dene people, who we call the Dene people. And north of them are the Inuit people. And a little bit west of us here are also the Dakota people in Manitoba. Okay. And northeast of us, Winnipeg here, and into Ontario are what we call, or who we call the OG Cree. And that's the Anishinaabe and the Cree nations coming together and having created their own culture and their own ways of life. So that's a little bit about Manitoba for those of you who are here for the first time. And so that's basically the indigenous population of Manitoba. And I understand this conference is on revolution. I kind of like that myself. I'll tell you a little story about revolution. Someone sent me a paper, and it was discussing the Anishinaabe of the Broken Head Nation. That's my people, where I come from. And my community is called Broken Head. It was written in the mid-1800s or early 1800s about my people in the area that I live in. And they said in the paper, the hardest people to convert to Christianity are the 2-braided Medewan heathens. I am 2-braided, and I am Medewan. I was born into that. That's who I am. That's our nation of people. And I was thinking, right on, resistance was right from the beginning. You'll hear a little bit more about that. Peter, a colleague of mine, is well-versed in and has become and granted to be a spokesman on behalf of the indigenous people of this area and what we do here. So if I can make it back on Sunday, I hope to see you. So those of you who are visiting, I say I wish that you enjoy your visit. And I would like you to take the story home back to your own people, that you were treated very good here by the Anishinaabe people, by the indigenous people of Manitoba. Okay? In order to honor you, I also want to honor you in the voice that we carry. I spoke to you in my language. I introduced you to my name, Geopolitical, indegnious, my Ingendude. That's my real name. My other name is Carl Stone. And we have, I'm sure many of you can be versed in why that is. Okay? But my real name is Geopolitical. For some people, I say that's the language of the land. And it is the language of the land here. If you go a little bit further north, you'll be listening to the Cree people in the language of their land. Okay? The song that I'm going to sing and honor everyone here with is a song that we use in our sacred pipe ceremony. It's the sacred pipe is one that came to us in a time where we needed peace. I don't know if we still need that today. That's kind of a joke. But the song that I'm going to use to honor all of us here in this meeting, and thinking about the travels that you had coming here, and also thinking about the travels that you're going to be having going home, and the good thoughts that you have picked up here, and that those good thoughts be taken back to your home, where you come from. The song is of our sacred pipe of peace. Some stereotypically know it as the peace pipe, but we call it the pipe of peace. In my own language, it's thoroughgoing, which means exactly the same thing. Okay, and then get on with the rest of the presentation. You stay seated. You don't have to stand on this one. Some people stand here. You can stay seated. Everybody, and enjoy your visit.
Thank you so much, Carl, for that very wonderful welcome, and I think a very appropriate short bit of information that sets us in the Manitoba context. I'd now like to invite Dr. Digvir Jaras, the Vice President of Research of the University of Manitoba, who has kindly agreed to deliver a few words of welcome to us.
Thank you, Radhika, and thank you, Carl, for the welcome. On behalf of the university, I welcome you all to the University of Manitoba, to the city of Winnipeg, and of course to the Revolutions Conference. Our university has adopted a very proud tradition of acknowledgement and commitment, so I'm going to begin with that. University of Manitoba campuses are located on original lands of Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories, we acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. For those of you who are not familiar with the University of Manitoba, University of Manitoba is one of the 15 research-intensive universities in Canada. And the simplest way you can think of as a 15-85 rule. These 15 universities in Canada conduct about 85% of research in the country. And we have 97 universities, and out of that, these 15 conduct about 85% of research, scholarly work, and creative activities. At the University of Manitoba, our researchers garner more than $190 million in research funding every year from external agencies. And these researchers are at the cutting edge of discoveries in research, scholarly works, and creative endeavors. It is an exciting time for the University of Manitoba as we celebrate our 140th anniversary, and as you know, Canada is celebrating its 150th anniversary this year. Our theme for this anniversary year is identity. As a university and as individuals, we are exploring important questions about who we are. When we ask, we learn. The right questions have the power to change our thinking, to alter our understanding of ourselves and one another, and create a better future for the next 140 years. This gathering for the Revolutions Conference is at a time of unprecedented global change and unique opportunity for international scholars to come together and ask questions. The University of Manitoba and its Geopolitical Economy Research Group will continue to ask the important questions as we face a time of radical and thorough social transformation. Bringing inspired minds together at forums such as this is to remain at the cutting edge of our ever-changing world. Today I invite you to consider the past and present revolutions, their causes, characters, and consequences during your deliberations and discussions. There are many lessons we can learn from reflections and respectful dialogue. The way we see the world and study our surroundings in this time of social transformation will be influenced by the deliberations and research by the people in this room. Before I close, I would like to thank each of you for attending our conference and bringing your expertise from an international and interdisciplinary perspective. Thank you and have a wonderful day.
I just want to say, first of all, having had both these welcomes, also welcome you on behalf of myself, on behalf of the Geopolitical Economy Research Group, and on behalf of the indispensable team of volunteers, and in particular the staff of GERG as well, Julia Greening and Helen Sokolowski, who have done untiring work to bring us here today, and I feel a tremendous sense of accomplishment to see you all here and to kick off this conference. I just want to make a few remarks to set the idea of this conference in a broader context and perhaps provide very briefly a setting for the conference in some reflections. And then I want to introduce our keynote speaker, our opening keynote speaker, Professor Kees van der Pijl, who will then give his keynote speech, and he will speak for about 45 to 50 minutes, or more or less as he chooses, and then there will be plenty of time for questions and answers. And thereafter, of course, as most of you probably know, there is a reception outside, just in the Galleria, for which we ask you to please stay and enjoy some refreshments with us. So, the Geopolitical Economy Research Group, perhaps we just realized, in fact, now that we have a tendency to take up a theme, but then re-articulate it in a big way. So some of you were there 2 years ago when we decided that instead of commemorating the opening of the First World War, we would commemorate the opening of what became, in fact, according to the historian Arno Meyer, a long 30 years crisis consisting of 2 world wars and a Great Depression and much dislocation that lasted from 1914 to 1945 and which transformed the authoritarian and imperial world that entered it into, if not a paradise, certainly a much better age of an international world with decolonization and so on, and at least a more democratic world, if not a completely democratic world, in which popular classes wielded unprecedented power, I would say, for at least a few decades until the neoliberal backlash. So similarly, we decided that this time around we would not simply mark the history of the Russian Revolution, not because we think the Russian Revolution is not an important event. Indeed, I believe, and most of my colleagues believe, it is one of the landmarks of events in human history. But we thought we would invite our colleagues and other colleagues to reflect on the theme of revolutions in general. And as we thought about it, the theme really grew on us, and here are some of the chief considerations why we thought it would be a really good idea to have this. First of all, it seems as though revolutions have a very peculiar relationship to capitalism, because it took revolutions to usher capitalism into history, and we have had revolutions that have at least tried, and in some cases are continuing to try, to usher capitalism out of history. And I think in that sense there is a tight relationship between the two. Of these revolutions, the Russian Revolution marks a very important turning point. A turning point precisely from ones that ushered capitalism in to ones that began to usher them out, and also from revolutions that were largely confined to the Western world to the beginning of revolutions, a century-long history of revolutions that would now take place outside it, in the non-Western world, in the Third World in particular, and would each in their own way contest imperialism as well as capitalism. And this is largely because there are actually, I guess, reflecting on this history would also perhaps make one realize that whether one agrees with it, or let me rephrase that, it would also make us reflect on the fact that in addition to class struggles, there are also international struggles, and that the revolutions of the 20th century since the Russian Revolution have typically combined both of them. Further, contrary to many fashionable trends, in fact, the crisis of imperialism of 1914 to 1945 that birthed the Russian Revolution, with which the Chinese Revolution, or rather which ended with the Chinese Revolution, also began, it also constituted a major break in the history of imperialism. While while what I'm about to suggest is not to say that we should not criticize imperialism, because it continues to exist in our time and is in many ways continues to be very violent in our own time. Nevertheless, we also should recognize that this crisis dealt a severe blow to imperialist forces, out of which imperialist forces emerged considerably weakened. Just to give you one small example, before its independence, in the half century before its independence, growth in the Indian economy was next to nil. It did not grow at all on a year-by-year basis throughout the 50 years before 1947 or mid-century. Thereafter, it did grow. It grew by 3.5% per annum, and Indian economists of the time adopted the self-deprecating expression, the Hindu rate of growth, to register their frustration with the fact that it was not faster. But at 3.5%, it was, shall we say, 350 times faster than next to no growth. And in that sense, I think that it did. You can't say, just because imperialism existed before 1947 and continued to exist in the forms of attempts by powerful countries to influence developments in less powerful ones, that it was the same old thing, and it wasn't. And a large part of the reason for that has to do with revolutions. The Russian, the Chinese, the Vietnamese, and a whole slew of national revolutions whose importance should also not be discounted, because it is only on the basis of an appreciation of these revolutions that we can understand the social transformation and the international transformation that is ongoing in the world today, whether while we may debate about the extent to which this is happening, the degree of its importance and so on, I think most people would agree that there are developments underway that are shifting the economic center of gravity of the world economy away from the West, where it has resided for the last couple of hundred years. And that represents a major and important development. And I would say finally that particularly because the leading economy in this shift remains an economy that is ruled by a revolutionary regime, namely the Communist Party state of China, I would say that the importance of the demonstration effect of what revolutions can achieve and what is neglected when they do not occur should perhaps make it give us pause for reflection, and that the demonstration effect of Chinese success, particularly at a time when Western economies, in their effort to remain capitalist, in order to invest only in the hands of a small group of capitalists the power to determine the pace and pattern of capitalist growth or economic growth. This contrast, I think that people around the world, policymakers around the world, will be taking notes about exactly what succeeds and exactly what fails. And I think the demonstration effect of Chinese success and the success of other economies, which is largely due to the extent to which states have been involved in fostering growth, I think cannot go amiss. So this is the context in which 100 years after the Russian Revolution, we are all gathered here to reflect on on revolutions in general. Each of us, of course, will come at it from our own specialty and our expertise on this or that part of the world, this or that revolutionary event or set of revolutionary developments. But nevertheless, we have already begun our exciting conversations, and I look forward to the next 2 days of further such reflections.